I think what we're doing now with artificial intelligence, we're playing the notes. We're not yet making the music.
Welcome to Luxury Travel Innovators. I'm your host, Adam Deflorian. Joining me today at HITEC is Stephen Beaumont, president of Kohler Hospitality. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me on Luxury Travel Innovators. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
It's great to be here in Indianapolis for HITEC. Looking forward to the show.
I am indeed. I arrived late last night, so I'm really looking forward to digging in there and seeing all the new technology that's out there.
Fantastic. Tell our listeners a little bit about Kohler Hospitality and what gets you out of bed in the morning as the president of the organization.
Well, I think the word unique is overused, but in this case, it's probably appropriate to use that word. Privately owned, family owned and operated, and the family is still very much involved in the business. And we have a very broad portfolio of different hospitality offerings, from lodging through golf, which we're very famous for, spa. We have retail and a lot of activities within the village of Kohler, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. And we also have our property over in Scotland as well. So it's very diverse. No 2 days are the same, which is, I think, one of the reasons that many of us get into hospitality in the first place. But it's a very dynamic place. It's something that is growing still, and we're consolidating a lot of things within the portfolio. So it's exciting. It's a very interesting and exciting time to be involved in this business. I was actually with Kohler for 10 years, back in the 2000s, and then I went away for about 14 years and came back and took my current role starting in January of this year. So I've been able to see the evolution of Kohler Hospitality. And when I came back last year, I did some consulting for a few months. It was interesting because a lot had changed and a lot was still the same. We have a lot of the same people. I kept seeing familiar names pop up on emails, and then actually got to meet these folks who were with me back in 2001 to 2011. And it's great to see people. It's all about people, right?
Yeah.
Hospitality is all about people, and we have so many people in our industry that we keep bumping into. And in our little microcosm of Kohler, there's a great team of people. So that gets me up and that gets me energized every day.
Yeah. And you guys are really the whole town of Kohler, right? I mean, is there, what else is there?
It's a village, actually.
Okay.
It's not even as big as a town, really.
Okay.
About 2,000 people live in that village. And it's, again, another reason why we have some almost unique aspects to that. The village was built around the factory. So Kohler Company, of course, is known as a plumbing company, primarily. And the evolution of that village was that it was built to be able to accommodate people who worked in the factory 150 plus years ago when it was founded. And as a result, we now have the resort itself and the village as well. And there's a community. And that's again, makes it very, very, very unique within that village environment. We have shops that accommodate and cater to the local community as well as resort guests. And that village is a community in itself. It's not just the resort. It's we work in partnership with the village and the local community, and it's a really special place.
And do most of the population, do they work for Kohler in some capacity that are usually who you would see in the village besides guests?
Well, I always bump into people I know.
Yeah.
It's not all people working in Kohler. I think originally it was, right? When it first started, that was the reason for it to be started in the first place. But now a lot of people are involved in Kohler in the company or have been. And yes, I can't go to the local grocery store without bumping into somebody that I work with.
Yeah. And then how far are you to the Green Bay Packers Stadium?
About an hour.
An hour, okay.
Yes, it's about an hour north. And that was a relatively recent addition to the portfolio. 2017, we purchased that. So an hour away, so still quite close.
Yeah. And do you have a fair number of guests that come for Packers games and stay at the property?
We do.
One of the properties?
But yeah, the game days at our property, Lodge Kohler, is literally right opposite Lambeau Field.
Okay.
So we do a pretty large percentage of our total revenue on those 10 or 11 game days. They're big days for sure. And we get some overflow as well in the village as well. So people that can, you can drive up to the Packer game in an hour. Totally. Tailgate and spend the day there. Yeah.
That's great. Now, what's the connection between the Scotland properties in St. Andrews and Kohler, Wisconsin.
So we purchased the St. Andrews property in 2004, and that is obviously golf is key for us within the village of Kohler and Kohler Hospitality. Golf has evolved as one of our primary drivers. Forgive the pun, but it's definitely it's very synergistic. And when Herb Kohler heard that the Old Course Hotel was available for sale, he jumped on that because of it's iconic, first of all, sitting right on the 17th hole of the most famous golf course in the world. So definitely synergistic and iconic, and it got us into a new area. Up until that point, we really had only been within the village of Kohler. So that was our first foray into anything outside of the village. And the synergy is immense. It really is incredible. Everybody talks about wanting to be able to play that old course. I mean, it's almost like a mecca for people to travel and play on that course. Interestingly, you can't just go play that course. That's an interesting part of the marketing, actually, because I think many guests believe that because we own the hotel, we're automatically going to be able to get onto the old course. We don't own the old course. The old course is a public course, and you can't play it unless you live in the town of St. Andrews, or if you're lucky enough to have your name come out of the ballot. There's a ballot every.
It's like a lottery.
A lottery, yeah. So, but you are right there on that 17th hole, the road hole, the most famous hole on the most famous golf course in the world. So, there's a lot of synergy there, and of course, we've been lucky enough to be able to host many major championships within Kohler at the Whistling Straits course, which is probably the one area that people do know us for. Kohler Hospitality is not necessarily well known as a hospitality business, but Whistling Straits, for anyone in the golf world and likes golf, watches golf, Whistling Straits definitely has that.
I'm not a golfer much myself, but I was curious, are there similarities at all between the St. Andrews course, the old course, and the course in Kohler, Wisconsin?
Well, I'm not a golfer either, actually. It's a big black mark against me, but there are definitely similarities. Certainly, if you're playing the Straits course, you might as well be on the ocean, right? So it's, in fact, it's interesting. We had when I first was with Kohler 20-odd years ago, we had a chef at Riverbend, the private club that I opened, and she'd come in from California, and she kept referring to Lake Michigan as the ocean. And it really does feel like that. I mean, you see no land, and the dunes are there, and so many similarities. Where it ends is that within Kohler we also have different styles of golf courses. So yes, we have the Straits course, which is the famous one where we've had our major championships and probably the hardest of the courses. But we also have woodland courses, Black Wolf Run, and the Meadow Valleys course there. So there's a lot of variety within the village, as there is in St. Andrews. I mean, you can play many courses in St. Andrews, not just the old course. So yes, there's similarities in as much as you have a lot of variety in both locations.
Yeah, and peak season in Kohler, Wisconsin is approximately what?
So we like to get the golf courses open as soon as we can. It's usually end of April, beginning of May, when we really get going, and we try to stay open until about the first week of November if the weather cooperates with us. Interestingly, in St. Andrews, it's all year round.
Yeah,
and you can play that course all the year round. And I always say that if you really want the authentic Scottish experience, you've really got to play that course in the mist and the rain and the wind. And, you can do that in January, which is interesting. The days are short, so you don't have too much daylight, but you can certainly play those courses in the winter time, which is a fun thing to be able to do, I think.
Yeah, the true Scottish experience.
Exactly.
Right?
We want to lean into that a little bit, right?
Exactly. I'd love to hear about your background in hospitality. I think it's such a robust industry. Like you said, it's such a small industry, right? We all know one another. We all interact with one another in a variety of ways. What made you really fall in love with hospitality?
Well, I think like a lot of people, it was one of those things that I just sort of fell into. Obviously, I'm not from around these parts. You can tell from my accent. I grew up in the UK.
Okay.
And there were two things that really fascinated me about hospitality, and one of them was travel. Living in North London as I did, we were fortunate enough to be able to go over to Europe quite a lot by car. Mm-hmm. The family would go every year to Europe, and that travel was really interesting to me. Languages have always been of interest, and I wanted to be able to experience that. And the other thing, actually, which we might talk about a little later on, is my interest in wine.
Yeah.
So I got into that as a result of travel, and then I thought, well, I see that people are actually doing this as a living, right? So they're managing hotels, and they're involved in that. You can travel anywhere in the world because hotels are everywhere, and wine is pretty much everywhere as well. So those are the two things that really got me into it. And I've also always enjoyed cooking. I've got three sisters.
Oh, wow.
None of those three were really particularly interested in cooking. So I did. I had an interest in cooking. Got a part-time job, as many of us do, when I was 14, and I started doing sorting the different bottles. The Coca-Cola bottles from the beer bottles, and the returnable bottles. And that was the first job I had, where you take everything out of a plastic bin, a skip, as we call it in the UK, and sort them. And that was in the cellar of a local hotel, and the chefs were walking through there, and I was fascinated by that. And I watched them, and if you show interest with anybody actually in this industry, I find they will give back, and they showed me how to turn a mushroom, how to slice an onion, and that sort of thing. And I got really into the whole sort of culinary side of things. So that drove me into the industry, and I've never looked back.
Yeah. What's your favorite thing to cook?
I like to go to the fridge and see what's there and just pull things out. I never follow recipes.
Okay.
Interestingly, I just find that it's nice to be able to sort of create something from what you've got. So I like to do that. Most recently, I've got into chocolate as well. I became a chocolatier a few years ago, which is the opposite, where you actually have to be very, very precise about that side of things. So that one uses a different side of the brain. But in regular cooking, I like to just free flow. Mostly I'll cook things on the stove. I'm not not a huge griller or definitely not a baker.
Okay.
But I like to just cook things on the stove, 1 or 2 pans. And
yeah.
Actually, my wife will tell you that I use 12 pans. And she seems to think that I just assume that she's going to come and clear up.
Well, it's funny too, because with chocolate, right, it has to be very low. Otherwise, if you're melting chocolate, you can't be on high. That's what I do.
Absolutely. No, and you have to be right within 1 degree, otherwise everything goes wrong. So yes, it's a different part, but generally cooking is just free flow.
Exactly. And so you mentioned wine, right? I mean, you are a certified wine educator. Was that just sort of part of, again, being in this hospitality world, or what sort of drove you to that?
Always been fascinated with wine. As I mentioned, we used to go across to Northern Europe as a family, and we'd drive through France, and we'd often stop in the vineyard areas in Champagne and Bordeaux, Alsace, and that was fascinating to me. And then my first position, my first sort of real job after I trained with the Savoy Hotel Company for 6 years, but after that, my first job was in Cambridge, England. As a food and beverage manager at a local hotel there. And the colleges within University of Oxford and Cambridge have some of the largest wine collections in the world. And so I was fortunate to be able to attend a lot of wine tastings in Cambridge that were really geared more to the colleges, and they were buying wines that none of us could afford in hotels. Yeah. We'd never be able to sell them, but they were buying them for their collection. And as a result, these wine merchants were showing us wines that otherwise I would probably have never had exposure to. So my interest was piqued during those years.
I'm a wine lover myself. I'm curious. Tell our guests what's a sleeper. What do you think that for great value but is robust and wonderful? What would you recommend to somebody?
I almost always gravitate towards Alsace. I think that's an underrated area. It's an easy one to understand because almost uniquely in France, they bottle their wines based on the grape varieties. So it's easy to be able to understand, this is a Riesling or this is a Gewürztraminer, and almost always great value and incredible quality for the price. So that would be my go-to if people are saying, well, I don't know what I really like. And I always find that if you go in that direction, for people who say they don't like dry wines, you can go down the Gewürztraminer road, or you can go down dry Riesling road and gradually get them away from the super sweet. They can be wonderful in their own way as well. But I almost always go in that direction.
Love it. Yeah. Love it. I'd love to understand more about how Kohler, sort of as you mentioned, right, known for kitchens and bathrooms and plumbing. How did they get into hospitality?
That's an interesting story. So, way back in 1918, they were manufacturing plumbing products, and a lot of immigrants came in from Northern Europe, and they needed to be housed somewhere. So Walter Kohler, who was Herb Kohler's great uncle, built what we now call, and what they did call, the American Club, which was really a hostel for young men coming across, not just young men, but men coming across from Northern Europe to work in the factory. And they were housed in the American Club. Not only were they housed there, but they had meals there in a sort of refectory style. They had opportunities for bowling, and they had a bar, and they had an opportunity to really have community, but also to learn about American culture. And they actually trained to become and studied to become American citizens. So we still have a restaurant at the American Club that we call the Immigrant Room, and that is a nod to that time. But that hostel continued until in 1981, Herb Kohler, the great nephew of Walter Kohler, realized we didn't need the American Club in that guise anymore. And so he reimagined that property and wanted to reimagine it as a luxury resort hotel. So in 1981, it was converted, and right from the get-go, we had a 5-diamond rating almost right away, which we've maintained. And this was the sort of the beginning of Kohler Hospitality, and gradually other parts grew around that. So the American Club was the hub of the wheel. Then we had golf, and we had what we call the Sports Core, which is an athletic club. It has a local membership, but also if you're staying at the hotel, you can use that. And then gradually, golf expanded, and then we had put in a spa, we had a second restaurant, second hotel, lots of different restaurants within the hotels, the shops, and it sort of it evolved over the years. So we're 40 odd years into Kohler Hospitality. And as I mentioned earlier, we then purchased the Old Course Hotel. We also have 2 spas in the Chicago area, one in Burr Ridge and one in Lincoln Park. They're standalone day spas. And of course, we have Lodge Gohl up in Green Bay, which we purchased in 2017. So everything sort of rotates around the village of Kohler, and the American Club is the hub of that.
Got it. Do you think there's ambition for the family to acquire additional assets and/or manage outside of the properties you currently have in the pipeline?
I would say there is. Right now, we're going through a period of consolidation. Some of these assets are a little tired, so we have a lot of renovation ahead of us. It's one of the things that drew me to come back to Kohler, actually, because there's a lot of investment ahead of us. We're in the process of changing we call Woodlake Market, which is a supermarket. It's a grocery store in the village, which really is there to accommodate the needs of the local community. But we are recreating and rethinking that one as an experiential food hall, if you will.
Yeah.
And then the Inn on Woodlake, which is our 3/4 diamond property, which is in that same complex, is being expanded. And we're creating a sports bar there as well, with an entertainment center, indoor golf simulators, Formula One simulators, to try to extend our seasons a little bit. And then down the road, hopefully not too far down the road, we will have a complete renovation of the American Club as well. So there's a lot of consolidation going on. That's not to say that we are not looking to acquire new assets. We also have plans to expand our golf offerings within Kohler. And we're always on the lookout for other opportunities. But right now, consolidation is the name of the game.
Got it. How would you define sort of the guest profile for our industry friends and the travel advisors as well? Obviously, such an important part of our industry. What would you say the guest profiles are in terms of like skewing towards families and ages at the different portfolio properties?
That's an interesting question, Adam. We have certainly we are in the luxury market. There's no question about that. The luxury individual market is a big one for us. The golf market, clearly, for us during the season, in Kohler in particular, drives a huge amount of our business. But we're trying to expand that as well. So multi-generational is super important.
Okay.
And we're seeing we see the entire range in terms of demographics. We have a good drive-in market from the Chicago area. We're 2 hours from downtown Chicago, which makes it a very interesting destination for people who just want to come for a couple of days. And then we're seeing a change in the market. We don't just have golf in the summer. It's interesting. We just did an analysis. We're seeing an increase in the number of people who come to us just for spa. And wellness is a huge part of our business and will continue to be. So that's encouraging. Golf is still probably the primary market for us in the winter. In the summer, in the winter, we used to rely a lot on group business. Back when I was here before, we had a lot of groups who would come in Q1, and that market has diminished, I think, for everybody, right? COVID had a lot to say about that, and now people just jump on a Teams call or a Zoom call, and they don't have as many groups coming away for a conference that they did. But now we're trying to encourage more of the leisure market to come in that time of the year as well. So some of the things that I just mentioned, the golf, the indoor golf simulators, that sort of thing, and trying to think up of ways of being able to encourage guests to come in the winter is a big challenge for us, actually, because if it's seasonal, we do very well in the summer, but we have to smooth out that. The same in St. Andrews. St. Andrews has the same kind of situation. Typically, people want to play golf in the nice weather, but there's plenty to do in St. Andrews. A great town in the winter as well, and so we're looking for the family market. We're looking for multi-generational opportunities and the younger market as well. And priorities have changed. I think people are looking for different things. They're looking for experiences. That's key for everything that we talk about in luxury travel. It's all about the experience. And while we're going through a renovation of the asset. And the assets are important, but they are just the palette, right? We want to paint those experiences. In fact, our motto is that we design unforgettable experiences. Design being an incredibly important word for us in Kohler Company, and that's key as we go forward. We're trying to be innovative and try to incorporate as many new things as possible, and then target specific audiences for those particular markets.
Got it. You mentioned experiences, and on Luxury Travel Innovators, I would say sort of a thematic element or a thread through almost every episode that I've had has been about once-in-a-lifetime experiences and how impactful they are, especially, of course, in our area of the market, in the upper luxury, ultra-luxury segment. Outside of golf and spa, which we know are fabulous, what would you say would be a once-in-a-lifetime type experience at one of the properties, whether it be in Scotland or at Kohler, Wisconsin, that you would want our listeners to hear about?
Well, we go back to the village and the history of the company, 150 years old, 152 years old now. We have a design center in the village, and that is an incredibly interesting place to be able to see. It's got the history of Kohler through the original cast iron hog tub that was created through to the most innovative smart toilets, for example. And it's displayed artfully. That's an important word for us as well. Art is really ingrained within the fabric of Kohler Company. So a tour of the art and the design center is certainly something that you're not going to get in many resorts. If you want to extend that further, you can take a tour of the factory.
You can. I was curious about that. Okay.
And you can, yes, it's a guided tour, and it'll be a gentleman or a lady that's been working in the factory will take you through the factory, and it's a fascinating tour. I mean, you actually, you go into the pottery and you see these folks working and creating these products, and it's still very manual. I mean, there's a lot of technology, but there's still a lot of you see it, you feel the heat of these the foundry, and it's a fascinating tour. And again, it's a very unique experience. So that's within the village. Within St. Andrews, even if you're not a golfer, there is something about seeing that beach where Chariots of Fire was filmed and being able to walk. On Sundays they close the old course. You can't play golf on the old course, but you can walk it. You can have a picnic on it. I mean, it's incredible. And then you've got this amazing view of the North Sea and the sands. So that's a once in a lifetime experience. And for those who are into football, American football, that would be, and even if you're not really, there is something special about Lambeau Field and the Lodge Kohler, our hotel there, is literally opposite there. You can get to a game, you can get a ticket. That's another story. But even if you can't, just seeing it, and I think that the Green Bay Packers are probably the most rabid fans, and they're all over the world. I mean, people, even if you don't live in Wisconsin, there's so many people that I know who are Green Bay Packers fans. And again, another mecca. I would say Lambeau Field's a mecca, Old Course is a mecca, and we have two of them within our portfolio.
Yeah, spectacular. Love it. How about partnerships outside of obviously Kohler? What sorts of partnerships do you guys have at the properties and through the brand that sort of enhance the guest experience?
We see partnerships as being really key to our success. First of all, we have our own partnership, right? So we have Kohler Hospitality, as I mentioned earlier, is perhaps not as well known as the Kohler brand as a plumbing company, but just partnering with Kohler ourselves and the plumbing products is a partnership in and of itself. If we extend that even further, we have formed a partnership with an incredible artist out of New York, Daniel Arsham, who is a visual artist with an amazing portfolio. And he has worked with us in the plumbing side, creating some very unique products, which we have now incorporated. And he's been involved in some installations and some exhibitions. We did one in Milan, and he created a beautiful product for us back in 2021. We've extended that still further, and now we have examples of his sculptures within the village, which they're pretty amazing. And one of our cabins, we have a cabin collection, which is part of our lodging portfolio. And one of those cabins has been converted, and we call it the Arsham cabin now, and it has his products in there. It has his art. It's very whimsical. It's on the lake. So that's an example where you can experience that and touch it and feel it. And it's very unique, and he's an amazing guy.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Love artistry and the fact that really is woven into the whole Kohler spirit.
Always has been.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. Being at HITEC here in Indianapolis, I'm curious, what are you here for? What are you most interested in seeing and learning about at the show?
Well, I'm looking forward to jumping in a little later today. So we're in the process of reevaluating every part of our IT. In fact, it's one of the three big priorities that I have for this year. Everybody's sick of hearing me talk about it, but we need to be a leader in this. I don't want to be following anymore. I think we need to be a leader in the field. And as we go through these renovations, I think it's an opportunity for us to really reevaluate everything we do in IT. The primary thing that we're looking at is the property management system, which I see as the hub of the wheel. Interestingly, I've just hired a new head of IT, and when I interviewed him, I said that exact same phrase, and he pushed back a little bit, and he said he felt that the customer relationship part is probably the hub of that wheel, and being able to track the guest experience throughout the entire thing. And I'm thinking more in those terms, how we keep a record of our guests throughout the entire resort, so that we are able to provide a personalized experience for them. But that tied into the property management system is the first part. Once we have that agreed and we are all aligned with that, then there's all the other stuff that we have to sort of bolt onto that wheel. The point of sale and the all of the revenue management and everything behind the scenes. And with Kohler Company, it's also slightly more complicated than some hospitality companies. So we have to tie everything into the mothership as well. So we have to make sure everything works with our SAP, for example, and we're going to be changing to WorkBrain next year, Workday, excuse me. So that is there's a lot of stuff that we have to think about, and the communication of between all these different programs and applications is key to that. But I think the starting point is for us to narrow down our property management system, and once we've got that, then we can start to look at other things. Yeah.
Curious to hear your take on. So it sounds like there's going to be this evolution from a technology perspective. Of course, AI is a huge part of that, and it's moving. We've been, especially here at HITEC, but outside of it as well. I mean, the pace that it's evolving at is extraordinary. I mean, it's not years, it's days and months, and it's rapid evolution, right? Everything from being able to create an app, right, and without writing a single line of code yourself, to being able to do a lot of the processes within the PMS side. And so I'm very curious to hear your take on more. I mean, we could go into this for hours, and we want to get you over to the show. So I'm curious, what's your vision for the guest-facing aspect of AI? Like, what do you think the future is of booking that experience, booking that stay, and then interacting and enhancing the guest experience through AI?
Well, you and I have had this conversation, and I've had it with everybody within my team.
Yeah.
My ultimate goal is for the guest experience prior to even coming to the resort to be as seamless as possible. And our resort is not unique in that, in as much as we have different experiences, and I want our guests to be able to book that experience as easily as possible. So my dream is for a guest to be able to go to a website and either type it in or ultimately just speak it and say, I want to come to the American Club from the 7th to the 9th of July. And I want to play golf, this course and that course, and I want to eat in this restaurant and that restaurant, and my wife or I want to have a spa service. And AI will, which is basically what you do when you're speaking to a reservation agent, but then AI will create an itinerary for you, such that it gives you options. You say, well, we can do this, we can do this, we can do this. This is how much it's going to cost you, and you just press the button and book it. So far, we've not been able to get to that because talking about how these applications have to speak to each other, we typically have a booking engine for lodging, a booking engine for golf, another one for spa, another one for dining. Even if they talk to each other, it's very hard at this point to be able to bring all of that information into a succinct itinerary that is literally one click to book. That's where I want to get. And then ultimately, we want to get even further so that all of that information is within our system and hopefully within other systems as well, so that those guest preferences will come back. So I'm not going to offer you an afternoon tea time if I know that the last 6 times you've been, you've always wanted a 6 a.m. tea time. So we're not even going to bother giving you that option. So that's really the intelligent part of this artificial intelligence, which, yes, it's moving at an incredible speed. I still feel it's very reactive, and I'd like to get to the point where it's more seamless. And technology can make life easier. Sometimes it makes it harder.
Absolutely.
But I want to get to the point where AI enhances that guest journey from way before they even arrive at the resort.
It was funny. One of my recent guests, who I respect greatly, he was talking about how we've sort of trained the guest that you have to book your trip, so to speak, in segments, right? So a trip is really what you're actually looking for. And that includes flight, car, hotel, activities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Nobody goes and says, I'm going to book a flight. I'm going to book a hotel. They do it because we've told them that everything's fractured and you have to go find your car and your flights that work with your car or your schedule. And you have to go find your hotel that's appropriate. And in one of that, in an order that, it works for them, and then activities, et cetera. But ultimately what AI is going to do is it's going to allow you to book a trip, right? And that trip will include all of those things, including flight and car and everything else, because that's when you're going on vacation or you're booking a business trip, you are booking a trip.
Exactly.
So it will help resolve that, which is interesting.
Exactly. And I think that, what we've been trying to do is sort of train the guests, I guess. And I don't like that word because that we shouldn't be training them to do anything. They should be telling us what they want and we should just provide that. But this idea of the shopping cart is an interesting one. You say, well, you go through sort of a linear process and you book your room and then you book your golf and book your dining. The challenge with that, even when you're talking to a reservation agent, is that you can get to point 3 of that, and then you find that the 4th part is not available.
Right.
And then you just wasted 15 minutes talking about things. So AI should be able to, simultaneously check all of these different inventories and not offer you something unless it is available. Because that frustration level then becomes great. Okay, it's just like when you're going through these telephone things, and you go through menu after menu after menu, and you end up in the starting point that you came into, and that the frustration is terrible. So we need to get to the point where everything is being interrogated at the same time, and we're only sending out that itinerary if it's entirely available for everything that you're looking for, and all my preferences are being appropriately designed.
And I think one other element to that, right, is the entire agentic workflow of right now, right, you have ChatGPT Operator and you have other solutions around agentic or an operation version of AI. And ultimately, it'll go even beyond just your own resort, right? And it will flow into your preferred AI assistant, whether that be Claude or OpenAI or other solutions. And to your point, you're going to have to figure out how you're going to differentiate the entirety of the experience through content, great content, right? And aspects of segments or modules that are flowing into those AI assistants that still give the guest that branded experience. And I think when that gets cracked, and obviously we're working very diligently on that here at AZDS, but being able to crack that is going to be so key. That's a little bit further out than the very near term, but it certainly is coming to us at such a rapid pace that's one thing that we're just thinking through options on as well.
Yes, indeed. And I hear that all the time. It's a little way out, but I want to make sure that we're there.
Exactly. Right? By the time you finish renovation, right, think about where AI is going to be.
Oh, I know.
Therefore, you got to be thinking, a few years in advance, not for 2 weeks. So, well, I'd always love to close every episode of Luxury Travel Innovators with a few rapid fire questions. So what personal travel are you most excited upcoming for?
Well, I'm excited. In July, my wife and I will be celebrating our 25th wedding anniversary. So we're
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're heading over to Europe. And at the same time, we're spending a few days in Paris and then driving from Paris to northern France where my parents have rented a farm, and they're celebrating their 70th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations to them as well.
All my three siblings will be there with their spouses and the kids and the grandkids. I think it'll be 28 of us. So that's something we're really looking forward to. It's going to be a great experience.
Sounds extraordinary. I think every American is going to Europe this summer again. They just can't have enough of it. So, what do you miss about the glamorous days of travel? It's about stepping back in time, whether it be about air travel or the stamped ashtrays at the Ritz-Carlton. I'm just curious, travel has changed, and the show is all about innovation and AI and things moving forward. I love hearing what people sort of reminisce about.
So for me, it's the anticipation. I go back to my childhood days when we would, all four of us, my four kids and my parents, would pile into a car and head down to Switzerland or through northern France. And that anticipation, and then the map. Sitting down with a map prior to going. Even if we're going to a place we've already been to, looking at a map and saying, well, can we take a different route? And spreading that map out and looking at and actually seeing it. I miss seeing a map. It's great to have a GPS, but you see a tiny part of on your screen. I like to be able to see, we were talking about this morning, understanding the geography of where we are here in Indianapolis, but being able to see this town or city or this vineyard or whatever relative to another. I miss doing that. And I think there is something, I don't know whether it's glamorous, but there's something reminiscent of and nostalgic about going back to a real map and then trying to fold it up again afterwards.
Yeah, it's funny you with the wrong creases in the map. And I remember growing up the exact same experience. Sitting down with my dad, we'd open up the map, and we would do a lot of growing up here in the Americas. It was the same, but it was a lot of the American road trip. So we would pile into the car and go somewhere. And you're absolutely right. That's the first I've heard of that in the podcast, and I think. There's something special about that. It helps you understand the geography, where you're located, what's around it, and you might discover things that you otherwise aren't going to discover.
No, exactly. And then turning the map upside down because you're actually going south.
Exactly right. I love that. My dad used to travel around in the car with those books of maps in the trunk, and you have to flip through. And boy, he knew where everything was, Yeah. And if you ask somebody today, they wouldn't have a clue. You just punch it into the GPS and go.
I know.
So.
My dad always used to collect maps. My mother used to think it was crazy, but he'd have a glove box full of different maps.
Yeah.
Probably only ever use them once, but
always. And last, what innovation in travel? It doesn't have to be technology. Could just be innovation in general. I mean, I've heard better sized luggage racks.
Which is a good one.
Which is a good one because they're always too small. As luggage has increased in size, right?
Well, they're not designed for this kind of suitcases we have anymore.
No,
right? They're designed for the ones that used to just go upwards, and now we open them out and we're balancing them, and
exactly right. Exactly, huge problem. But what innovation in travel is missing that you think somebody should invent, an entrepreneur should invent?
Well, we alluded to it just now when we talk about how artificial intelligence needs to get more intelligent. I use a lot of analogies, so forgive me for this one, but I think what we're doing now with artificial intelligence, we're playing the notes. We're not yet making the music. And I think the individual parts of AI are great in themselves, but once we get to the point where they can all come together, so that, as we talked about, the flight and the hotel stay and the activities, and our own profile and our preferences is already there and available for everybody, and everyone can. Obviously, there are all kinds of issues with security, and I get that. But if it's done correctly and efficiently, I think then it's anticipative, and people are going to be the AI should be able to anticipate. When I arrived last evening after my 6-hour drive, it would be wonderful for that person at the check-in desk to have known that, rather than asking me how my flight was. It's a little thing,
Yeah.
but those are things that, as I say, we start to create music, and right now we're playing the notes.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Stephen, thank you so much for joining me. I greatly appreciated it, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks for watching this episode of Luxury Travel Innovators. Be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. See you next time.